Hello and welcome to Black Rose Garden. So I've been leveling my second character recently and I wanted to get a little bit creative with my leveling build, so I've been looking into all sorts of uniques that I could use for leveling, and I actually found some that I feel like are best in slot that I don't see anyone else talking about. So I wanted to share some of them. I should first preface by saying that all of these items you can equip either at or before level 30. I think it's reasonable to have one set of gear for level 1 and then one set of leveling gear to swap to when you're level 30. Any more than that would be too tedious. So the first item is Fox Shade. In my opinion, movement speed is the single most important stat for leveling fast, and this one simply gives you more movement speed than any other body armor. But on top of that, it gives you a ton of flat evasion, which keeps you really safe as well, and even makes damage against you unlucky. And we pair really well with Death Rush. This is obviously not an underrated item. I'm sure a lot of you already know this item for leveling because of the adrenaline is such an insane buff. But I actually want to talk about the Recover Life on Kill because it pairs super well with Fox Shade, and it basically guarantees that you'll always be on full life. Especially if you're playing a class like Witch, which doesn't inherently have any life recovery at all, basically. This will solve all of your life recovery problems. Next is Vol Caress. This item simply has a lot of life and res, more than any rare item that you could equip at, I believe the level requirement is 27. At that level, you simply can't get that much life on a rare piece of gear. But on top of that, there's also the Onslaught effect, which is useful if you don't have another way to get Onslaught, although I recommend a more consistent way to get Onslaught, like Watcher's Eye with Haste Onslaught. And it also gives +5 level to Vol skill gems, so this also gives the +5 level to the regular version of Vol skill gems. So for example, I have socket in Vol Grace and Vol Haste. Even though I never use Vol Grace, it still gives +5 level to Grace. And you can also put in a Vol Molten Shell if you use that. And then for this one that I'm using, I also got it corrupted with Elemental Weakness on hit. You can technically look at getting corrupted implicits on every piece of unique gear you get for leveling, but getting Curse on hit is probably the best one because it just gives you so much damage and it's such a good quality of life, so you don't have to keep activating your curses. And it also pairs really well with the next item, which is Chalice of Horrors. I actually originally found this item because I needed something that had energy shield, but then I read the rest of the stats and I was like, whoa, this is insane. So starting from the bottom, it inflicts decay when you curse enemies with Exhale, which actually works off of triggers like Elemental Weakness on hit from the gloves, and it does 700 chaos damage per second, which for endgame builds is not a lot, but at level 30, when you're in like Act 3, this is a lot of damage. And then above that, it gives 20% chance to block against curse enemies. Well, if you curse on hit, then all enemies that you hit are cursed, so you'll just simply get 20% more block, which is pretty big. And of course, at the very top, this gives implicit movement speed, and that's 9 is really high. So this shield basically just gives a little bit of everything. And then I have 2 more shields. Shield are obviously really good for leveling because shield charge is the best movement skill, so you almost always want to have some shield. This one you can equip that at level 8, and similar to the Vol Caress, it just simply has more stats than you can get on a rare. 80 life is really high at level 8, and it also has res and block. And then the last shield, it's very good for spell builds because it adds cold damage to spells, and then the crit chance is really good too if you take Elemental Overload. So if you have a skill like Armageddon Brand that doesn't hit very often, you actually won't have very high uptime of Elemental Overload, so getting increased crit chance is really good. This shield also has really high energy shield, which is the reason why I need it, since I run Eldritch Battery. And the last item I want to talk about is Deodrade's Damning. This is an item that you can equip at level 1. It's obviously famous for the additional curse, but we're actually not even using that for leveling. We're using it for the gain 20 mana per enemy killed. This is absolutely insane in the Act 1 and 2 and even beyond that. And it also gives a lot of res too. You can actually probably get a corrupted implicit with even more res if you wanted to. This ring alone will solve all of your mana problems through Act 1 and 2 and 3. The other options for solving your mana problems I see people using are like Prandus Signet, which gives % mana regen, but your base mana regen is so low that that one actually doesn't give you a lot. And then the other ones like Praxis or Chevron's Revelation you can't equip until much later. So that's all the uniques that I don't really see other people talking about. Obviously, I'm using standard stuff like La Hoopa Ball, 7 League Step, and Gold Rim. Don't worry about this belt. I'm going to talk about this belt in a later video. And that's it. Thank you for watching.